I was working at a high-end language center when a new kid joined my class. While we were chatting, he bragged that his mom was the famous superstar, Seraphina Rossi. He said she was gorgeous and incredibly wealthy. What a coincidence. My wife of 7 years is also named Seraphina Rossi, and she is also a superstar. I contacted her immediately to demand a divorce. But I had forgotten something crucial. From the very beginning, we never actually signed the marriage papers. It turned out that I was nothing more than the side piece in someone else's marriage. My mommy is the famous Seraphina Rossi. She's got more money and looks than anyone. Mr. Sterling, you better teach me well. If you do, my mom will make sure you're taken care of. The 7-year-old boy in front of me, Leo Crawford, spoke with an insufferable amount of pride. A loud thud echoed in the room as my phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor. I had been in the middle of texting Seraphina. My wife's name is Seraphina Rossi. She is a household name, a literal icon. We have been together for 7 years. Just moments ago, I was messaging her to ask if she would be home for dinner. My chest felt tight, a dull ache spreading through my lungs, but I forced myself to stay calm. I told myself it was impossible. It had to be a coincidence. Leo, do you have any photos of you and your mom? Leo smirked, looking triumphant. Of course. I grew up in London, and we took tons of pictures together. He pulled out a sleek smartphone and began scrolling through his gallery. This is us at the stables. I love riding horses. In the photo, Seraphina was smiling beautifully, her arms wrapped around Leo at a private ranch. He kept scrolling. There weren't just photos of the two of them, there were family portraits. The pictures were taken inside a sprawling mansion. A young man in a bespoke suit held Leo's hand with one arm and had his other wrapped around Seraphina's waist. That's my dad. He's a big deal. He's Silas Crawford, the CEO of the Crawford Group. Leo kept talking, his voice buzzing in my ears. Every word he spoke felt like a jagged blade carving into my heart. I couldn't take it anymore. I reached out and clicked his phone screen off, my heart thumping painfully against my ribs. Leo, I don't feel well. I need to head home early. I struggled to keep my composure as I stumbled toward the exit. But as I turned the corner, I ran straight into a man dressed in a suit that cost more than my car. I recognized him instantly. He was the man from the photos. Leo's father is Silas Crawford. Hello, Mr. Sterling. It's Leo's first day of tutoring. How is he settling in? Silas adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses, looking every bit the powerful executive. Suddenly, his phone erupted with a FaceTime notification. The caller ID on the screen simply read, "Wife." When he swiped to answer, Seraphina's stunning face filled the display. Hey honey, since you and Leo just got back to the States, I cleared my schedule for tonight. Let's go out for a nice steak dinner. I felt the blood drain from my face. My entire body turned to ice. I had been married to Seraphina for 7 years. And yet, here she was calling another man her husband. Worst of all, they had a 7-year-old child. That meant she was already carrying Silas's baby when she walked down the aisle with me. I felt like I was about to have a total breakdown. Right now, I had one goal: find Seraphina and get the truth. I gave Silas a half-baked excuse and bolted from the learning center. The entire drive home, I called her over and over. She didn't pick up once. Instead, she sent a text. Sorry, baby. I have a late-night shoot and won't be back until morning. Love you. I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces. If I hadn't seen her on that screen with Silas, I would have believed her. I would have felt bad for her working so hard. Thinking back over the years, she had used this exact excuse hundreds of times. I had never doubted her. Not even once. You need to come home tonight. We need to talk. Now. I hit send, but she never replied. Finally, I called her personal assistant, Jenny. Because Seraphina was a star, our wedding had been a secret ceremony. Aside from her assistant and a few close friends, nobody knew we were a couple. Where is Seraphina right now? I tried to keep my voice from shaking. There was a long, awkward pause on the other end. Caleb, Seraphina is at a work event. Is everything okay? I just need to know where she is so I can stop worrying. She texted me saying she was going to dinner before her shoot, right? I knew if I didn't bait her, she wouldn't talk. Jenny sighed in relief. Oh right. Yeah, she's at the Grand Bistro. She'll be heading to the set right after. I drove to the Grand Bistro. As soon as I stepped inside, I saw them. Silas was holding Leo's hand, and he had his arm draped protectively around Seraphina. They looked like the perfect, happy family. It was the kind of scene that would make anyone envious. But for me, it was a knife in the eye. During our years together, Seraphina was often away for work, but I thought our bond was unbreakable. I believed every lie she ever told me. When she said she was busy, I trusted her. When she took frequent trips to London, claiming she had international brand deals, I believed her. Now I realized the truth. She was hiding in another country to give birth to Leo. And I was back home, playing the part of the supportive, idiot husband. I clutched my chest, the pain so intense I could barely breathe. I managed to steady my hands enough to snap a photo of the three of them. Then I sent it to her. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Seraphina. Caleb, listen to me. Please just calm down. That was just a scene for a movie. Her voice was trembling. She sounded panicked. If I hadn't met Leo today, I might have fallen for it again. She was a brilliant actress after all. She had spent 7 years making me believe she truly loved me. Seraphina, I saw everything. My voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. It really is just a movie. We're filming a scene about a family dinner today. I swear. It was pathetic. Even now, with the evidence in front of her, she was lying. Leo showed me the photos, Seraphina. The private ones. From your home in London. He told me you're his mother. He told me Silas Crawford is his father. My voice cracked as the tears started to burn. Seraphina, I want a divorce. The moment I said it, a cold realization washed over me. We didn't have a marriage license. Back then, she told me that as a rising star, she needed to remain officially single. She said her agency would drop her if they found out. I had believed her. Now I knew why we never went to the courthouse. She was already legally married to Silas Crawford. I wasn't the husband. I was the mistress. I was the guy she kept on the side. I didn't even have the legal right to ask for a divorce. I forgot. I choked out, my throat tight with grief. We aren't even legally married. I don't even have the right to leave you, do I? Being betrayed by the person you love most is a fate worse than death. I met Seraphina during the lowest point of her life. Back then, she was being framed in a scandal involving a director. The entire internet was dragging her name through the mud. She couldn't even walk down the street without people screaming at her. One afternoon, a crazed stalker followed her. I happened to be walking nearby. She grabbed my hand, her body shaking with terror. Please help me. Someone is following me. I turned around just as a man lunged forward with a knife. Without thinking, I stepped in front of her. The blade sank deep into my side. My kidney was punctured. I spent a long time in the hospital fighting for my life. She was so grateful. She paid for all my bills and spent every single day at my bedside. She once asked me, "Why would you jump in front of a knife for a complete stranger?" I told her. It was just a reflex. Her eyes welled up with tears when she heard that. "If it weren't for you, I'd be dead," she whispered. She told me everything about her family's bankruptcy and the online bullying. I felt so much for her. I promised to help her clear her name. We spent every day together. We ate together, investigated the scandal together, and shared our lives. Slowly, I fell for her. Deeply. But I never knew if she truly felt the same. After I was discharged, I spent a whole year tracking down the person who framed her. It turned out to be a rival actress. Once the truth was out, her career skyrocketed. She became more famous than ever. She took me out to a celebratory dinner. We both had a few drinks, but we were sober enough to know what we were saying. She looked me in the eyes and said, "Caleb, will you marry me?" We became intimate that night, and not long after, we had a wedding. Even though we didn't sign the papers, I was happy. She promised me that as soon as her contract ended, we'd make it official. I truly believed her. I thought she was trapped by a corporate deal. Now I see the truth. It was all a performance. She played me for 7 years. I didn't even know she had another child until today. I've been living a lie as the third wheel in my own life. Caleb, please. You need to breathe. Seraphina's voice was shaky on the line. Listen to me. My marriage to Silas was just a business arrangement. You remember how bad things were back then. I needed a backer to get my career back. So you lied to me for money? You kept me in the dark for 7 years. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. My heart was a lead weight in my chest. I remembered when we picked out our rings. She had held my hand so tight. Caleb, being your wife is the greatest blessing of my life. I swear, I will never let you down. Now, every promise she ever made felt like a slap in the face. She has a husband. She has a son. And I am the homewrecker. Our daughter is nothing more than a secret. I didn't have a choice. My family was broke, and the world hated me. Seraphina's voice grew desperate. And look, it doesn't have to change anything. Silas doesn't know about you. We can keep living exactly like we were. We don't need a piece of paper from the government. We love each other, and that's enough. I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. The sheer lack of morality was staggering. I'm leaving, Seraphina. And I'm taking our daughter with me. Don't ever contact me again. My heart was breaking as I said it, but I knew I had to. Suddenly, her tone shifted. She sounded furious. You can't. Caleb, I am not giving you our daughter. If you want to see her, you will stay right where you are. If you leave, I'll make sure you never see her face again as long as you live. Her words felt like a bucket of ice water dumped over me. I went numb. I never imagined she would use our child as a weapon against me. When our daughter was born, Seraphina sent her away immediately. She said she was terrified of the paparazzi. She hasn't let me see her or even call her for years. She told me her career was on the line. She said if the world found out she had a child, it would all be over. So I waited. I stayed in the shadows. I haven't even seen my own daughter's face in person. I don't even know where she is. She is the only family I have left. I can't lose her. Caleb, don't hate me for being tough. I just can't lose you. I love you too much. Her voice went back to being soft and sweet. It made my skin crawl. If she loved me, why did she have a child with another man? At this point, I didn't even know what love meant anymore. I sat in the dark and waited all night. Seraphina never showed up. I tried calling, but she didn't answer. By morning, I saw the news. She had officially announced her long-term marriage to Silas Crawford on social media. She even shared photos of their son. Because Silas is a billionaire, the internet went wild. Everyone was celebrating them. The CEO and the movie star. They are literal goals. Oh my God, she kept this a secret for so long. So romantic. My heart finally turned to dust. Anger and pain fought for space in my chest. I was done. I had to get out. But I had no idea where my daughter was. I spent the next few days desperately trying to reach Seraphina. I needed to find my little girl. But she ghosted me. She didn't come home, and she didn't pick up the phone. All I saw were her posts of her and Silas looking like the perfect couple. She had completely erased me. Then I finally got a text. Have you made up your mind? Are you still planning to leave me? Caleb, if you take back what you said about leaving, I'll take you to see our daughter. We can go back to how things were. She was playing both sides. She wanted Silas's money and status, and she wanted me as her backup. She was treating me like a spare tire. I regretted ever meeting her. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of a reply, but I had to see my child. Fine. I won't leave, but I want to see her now. She replied instantly. Deal. I thought she'd keep her word. But when she came home that night, she didn't mention our daughter. She just tried to climb into my lap like nothing had happened. Caleb, I missed you so much. Let's go to bed, okay? The thought of her being with Silas made me feel physically sick. I want to see my daughter. I shoved her off me. She looked shocked. I had never been rough with her before. I'll take you tomorrow, she muttered. But when I woke up the next morning, she was gone. She texted me saying she had a major award ceremony to attend. I realized then that she was just stalling. She had no intention of letting me see our girl. I looked up the location of the ceremony online. When I got there, she was on stage, glowing under the spotlights, giving an acceptance speech. A reporter shouted, Seraphina, you recently went public with your marriage. Can you tell us about your love story with Silas? She gave a radiant smile. Of course. Silas and I have been married for 7 beautiful years. And what about me? I stormed onto the stage, cutting her off mid-sentence. Her eyes went wide with terror. What are you doing here? Get out, she hissed under her breath. I'm not going anywhere. Today, everyone is going to know that you've been lying for 7 years. The air in the Grand Theater of the Lincoln Center was dry, smelling of expensive floral perfume, hot vacuum tubes from the stage lighting, and the faint, dusty tang of old velvet. As I stepped onto the stage, the white spotlights didn't just hit me, they felt like a physical pressure, blinding my eyes until the thousands of faces in the audience blurred into a single, vast sea of gray. Caleb. Seraphina's voice was a low, desperate hiss that didn't carry past her microphone. She took a rapid, clumsy step back, her gold sequin gown rustling against the dark oak floorboards. Her eyes, usually so bright and expressive, under the cameras, were wide with a raw, biological terror. What are you doing here? Security. Get this madman off the stage. But the security guards did not move immediately. I was wearing my best gray wool suit, the one she had bought me for our 3rd anniversary, the only expensive thing I owned, and I carried myself with a calm, deliberate authority that made the stage manager hesitate, assuming I was part of a planned theatrical interlude. I walked straight to the center podium, my hand reaching out to grab the microphone from the brass stand. Good evening, everyone, I said, my voice carrying easily through the professional sound system, echoing off the high plaster molding of the ceiling. My name is Caleb Sterling. For 7 years, I have been the husband who lived in the dark. The husband who stayed home while his wife went to London to give birth to another man's child. The theater went dead silent. It was the specific, heavy silence of a crowd that had just realized they were not watching an award ceremony, but an execution. No, Seraphina shrieked, her hand flying to her mouth as she tried to pull the microphone from my grip. He's lying. He's a stalker. He's been harassing me for years. Silas, help me. In the front row of the VIP section, Silas Crawford stood up. The billionaire CEO of the Crawford Group looked immaculate in his bespoke tuxedo, his gold-rimmed glasses catching the white glare of the spotlight. But his face was completely pale, his jaw set so hard the muscles in his cheek were twitching. Silas, I said, looking down at him from the edge of the stage. Your wife's Legal marriage to you was registered 7 years ago. But 7 days before your wedding, she stood on a beach in Malibu and wore a platinum ring I bought with my entire savings. She's been sleeping in my bed every Tuesday night under the guise of her late-night shoots. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen, connecting the device to the theater's massive digital display board behind us. The screen did not show her movie trailers. It displayed a high-definition image of our private joint account ledger, followed by 36 pages of her hotel logs in London under her maiden name. And finally, the birth certificate of our daughter, Lily, with my name listed as the biological father. The flashbulbs in the front row did not just start, they exploded. A dizzying, blinding wall of white light erupted from the press gallery, turning the grand hall into a chaotic, screaming hive of activity. The transition from the Grand Theater to the Municipal Police Precinct was quiet, the only sound the dry, rhythmic click of the detective's keyboard in the consultation room. I sat in the plastic chair, my hand resting on the wooden table. The cuts on my fingers, where I had gripped the microphone too tightly, had been bandaged by a nurse, but I couldn't feel the sting. I was completely numb. My father-in-law, or rather, Silas's attorney, a sharp-featured man named Miller, stepped into the room, carrying a leather folder. "Mr. Sterling," Miller said, his voice flat but carrying the unyielding force of a hammer blow. "The Crawford Group's legal team has officially initiated a quiet divorce proceeding against Seraphina Rossi. The premarital asset protection forms she signed 7 years ago are watertight. She will be leaving the marriage with nothing." "And my daughter?" I asked, my voice raspy. "Our security team has already tracked her down," Miller said. "She was being kept in a private residential estate in the Northern Hills, managed by a staff of 3 assistants who were paid out of Seraphina's corporate travel account. The child, she's healthy, Caleb, but she has been entirely isolated." He handed me a photo. It was a small 7-year-old girl with quiet, sage-green eyes and dark, messy hair. She was sitting on a wooden bench in a walled garden, holding a cheap plastic doll, looking like a little ghost who had spent her entire life waiting for a door to open. "The court has approved the temporary custody transfer to you, Mr. Sterling," Miller said. "Under the circumstances, the state attorney's office is also preparing a formal indictment against Seraphina Rossi for child abandonment and corporate fraud." I looked at the photo of my daughter. Her eyes were identical to mine, the same soft, intelligent brown that had once looked at Seraphina with such complete, unquestioning devotion. "Thank you, Mr. Miller," I said, my voice quiet as the winter wind outside. "I'll go get her now." The estate in the Northern Hills was quietest in the evening. The air smelled of salt, pine needles, and the cold mist that rolled off the Pacific every morning. The only sound was the distant, rhythmic crash of the waves against the black cliffs of the harbor. I walked through the iron gates of the property, my boots clicking slowly on the wet gravel of the driveway. The house was a large, gray-shingled villa, its windows dark except for a single, warm light on the ground floor. I pushed the heavy front door open. A small figure was sitting on the wooden floorboards of the foyer, her head bowed over a coloring book. "Lily?" I called out, my voice trembling. The little girl froze. She slowly lifted her head, her dark eyes wide, wild with a sudden, terrified confusion as she looked at my simple wool coat and my worn leather boots. Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The lady said I'm not allowed to talk to strangers." I walked over, my knees touching the cold floor as I knelt beside her. I pulled a small, silver pocket watch from my pocket, the one my father had given me before his death, the one I had kept safe through 7 years of my life. "I am Caleb, Lily," I said, my voice dropping into that quiet, gentle register I had used when I was waiting for her mother to come home. "I'm your father." Lily stared at the watch, then at my face. Her eyes scanned the small, faded scar on my neck where the stalker's knife had grazed me 10 years ago. "Daddy," she whispered, her fingers reaching out to touch the cold metal of the watch. The lady said you were in the sky. She said you had to stay there, so I could have my school." "I was in the dark, Lily," I said, my tears finally spilling over my cheeks, dark spots appearing on her little gray dress. "But the light is back now. Let's go home." She didn't ask about her mother. She didn't ask about her toys. She simply let out a long, ragged sigh of pure, raw relief, her small arms wrapping around my neck as I lifted her into my arms, carrying her out into the clean winter air of the hills. The civil suit for the division of our shared assets was finalized in late November. We sat in the conference room of Vance and Partners. Seraphina sat across from me, her face shrunken, her eyes hollowed out by 6 weeks of legal warfare and public scandal. She had lost the house, her shares in the Crawford Group, her movie contracts, and her reputation. The Winger Group had bought out her remaining debt at a 90% discount, leaving her legally and financially bankrupt. She didn't look like the proud, beautiful movie star of our college years. He looked like an empty shell, her silk dress hanging loose and wrinkled on her frame. Caleb, she said, her voice a dry, rattling whisper as she picked up the pen to sign the final page of the custody agreement. We were together for 7 years. 7 years. How could you just destroy my entire life over this? Over a marriage license? Over a child? I didn't destroy you, Seraphina, I said, keeping my hands folded in my lap, my voice as calm as the sea. You built a house of sand, and you were surprised when the tide came in. You thought because I was quiet, because I was devoted, I would always be waiting in the other room, ready to pick up your dry cleaning and ask for your permission to buy a dress. I stood up, not waiting for her to finish her tears. The pen is yours, Seraphina, I said, walking toward the door. Keep it. It's the only thing in this room you can actually afford. The door opened wide, the cold wind from the stairs blowing through the office. My assistant was standing there, holding my leather coat and my private keys. Beside her stood Marcus, carrying his folder, and my new design partner, a tall, quiet woman with dark eyes who had worked beside me for 3 years to build the agency. Are you ready, Caleb? She asked, her voice carrying a quiet, genuine warmth. Yes, I smiled, stepping out into the bright, clean light of the lobby. Let's go. The Winger Group's old office building was in a state of quiet, high-intensity collapse. The news of the twin birth fraud had gone viral, turning the Vance family's high society reputation into a public joke. The local newspapers played the story of the silent savior on every page, with dozens of former partners coming forward to describe the years of systematic abuse and neglect I had endured while building my fiancé's company. I sat in my cozy, sunlit study in my new downtown apartment, a cup of hot chamomile tea in my hand, reviewing the final draft of my civil suit. My phone, sitting on the wood beside my tea, vibrated once. It was a news notification from the city. Former billionaire Richard Vance's bankruptcy case concluded. Court orders liquidation of remaining personal assets to fund the Vance Memorial Trust. Beneath the headline was a small photo of Richard standing outside the municipal courthouse. He was wearing a cheap, off-the-rack gray coat, his hair completely white, his eyes hollow, entirely free of the billions that had once made him untouchable. And as for Seraphina, she was currently serving her second year of a 15-year sentence in a state penitentiary, her name permanently removed from the company registry, her family's empire dismantled by the creditors and the prosecutors. I looked at the screen for a long, quiet moment. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel the sharp, twisting pain of the trauma that had kept me awake during those cold winter nights in the apartment. The boy who had pulled me out of the river, and the girl who had faked her pregnancy were gone, reduced to simple, dry statistics in a folder I would never open again. I closed the laptop, put my phone on silent, and picked up my tea. The coastal town of Mendocino was quiet in the winter. The air smelled of salt, pine needles, and the cold mist that rolled off the Pacific every morning. The only sound was the distant, rhythmic crash of the waves against the black cliffs of the harbor. I sat on the wooden deck of my small, gray-shingled cottage, a cup of hot chamomile tea in my hand. I was wearing a simple, dark green sweater, my abdominal scars completely healed, leaving only 3 tiny, pale lines on my skin that were invisible under my clothes. Beside me on the table lay my drawing tablet, its screen displaying a clean, elegant landscape design for our new municipal park project. Caleb. I looked up. My colleague, a tall, quiet man with dark hair and a green backpack, named Marcus, was standing by the glass door, holding a fresh batch of warm cinnamon rolls. The wind is picking up, Caleb, Marcus smiled, sitting down beside me and pulling a wool blanket over our knees. Are you cold? I looked down at the design on my screen, then at the golden sunset over the ocean and finally at his warm, genuine smile. No, I said, leaning my head against his shoulder. I'm very warm. Across the water, the first yellow lights of the harbor were starting to glow in the dark, but I didn't look at them. I closed my laptop, took a sip of my warm tea, and let the clean, cold wind off. The water carried the last dry leaves of the past away into the endlessly beautiful horizon ahead.